Sup nerds? Torok at your service. This video is part 2 of my top 25 most wanted death battle ideas. If you haven't checked part 1, I highly suggest you do. We went from 25 all the way to 11. As I'm talking right now, you're very close to 1,000 to have watched part 1, and I couldn't thank you enough. I think this is the most views I did with a video that wasn't really a reaction or a fucking meme. So thank you so much again. I'm very bad at thanking people. All right, without further ado, let's not waste any more time. Let's just jump right back into our countdown with number 10. Let me talk about the first death battle that made me watch the rest of the series. Fox McCloud vs. Bucky O'Hare. I remember being utterly shocked or confused when it was first announced. It was a mix of hype, because I knew Fox from Super Smash Bros., and confusion because, well, let's face it, we've all asked that question. Who the fuck was that guy? But looking up his show threw me into an absolute phase where I loved discovering these obscure shows or video games that were a bit lost to time for better or worse, like Bucky O'Hare, but also Vector Man, the Darkstalkers cartoon, The Tick, Earthworm Jim, Conker's Bad Fur Day, but most precious of all, the world of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle ripoffs. We've had those in death battles past, like Zitz from Battletoads or Bucky himself, kinda. But among these colorful monsters who shamelessly surfed on the turtle fever, no team has been more awe-inspiring and hilarious than these two.
There's a new breed in the neighborhood. Some say they're just no good. Half shark, half man, fighting evil, that's the plan. Street sharks. Street sharks. Street sharks. Oh, that's fossilizer! Extreme dinosaurs! Velocitopsis to the max, they buckle them in their tracks. Extreme dinosaurs! The fact that you're looking for extreme dinosaurs!
The Street Sharks versus the Extreme Dinosaurs. Now, you might be wondering why these two should go against each other specifically. Because trust me, there's a lot of TMNT ripoffs, like Biker Mice from Mars, Cowboys of New Mesa, Samurai Pizza Cats, and I'd be here all day if I list them all now. But ironically, not only are Street Sharks and Extreme Dinosaurs born from the same company, one after the other, they're also the only ones to form a team of 4 animals, not including later members like Manta Man or Hard Rock, who are also the results of genetic mutations that ooze with 90s energy. They also like to travel around in outlandishly marketable vehicles, have a similar theme of protecting the environment, and have the audacity to have that same trope of having a favorite food while shitting on the TMNT's own favorite food. No, like, seriously, in Street Sharks, there's this dude who's like their discount April O'Neil. He's like, hey guys, you wanna have pizza? And like straight up the sharks are like, ew, pizza, fucking cringe. Let me have some hamburgers, that's real poggers. They're also famous for being insanely strong, biting through anything, but they also have their own unique abilities that makes this battle interesting, like how the Street Sharks can swim through concrete, and the Dino having more gadgets overall, like a grappling hook or a freeze blaster, etc, etc. And that's just like the tip of the iceberg. They have so much ability that constantly clash each other. It's so funny. Like the Extreme Dinosaurs' main move, the Saurian Stomp, where they create an earthquake by stomping on the ground. Well, Big Slamu of the shark side has this exact same ability. Or the Street Shark's ability to swing through concrete again. Remember? Well, the Stegs of the Extreme Dinosaurs can also dig through the ground at high speed with his spin dash like attack. Not to mention all the gadgets and armors and jetpacks, and they both seem to have comparable feats. It's such an interesting matchup, and it has, again, the potential to be the most how do you do fellow kids matchup of all time, and god damn it, I wouldn't want it any other way. Oh fuck, I also realized they both fight with musical numbers. Like, there's a lot of action scenes where there's, like, a completely random musical numbers, like, rockin' with lyrics and stuff. And I didn't even talk about their exchange. They could have the silliest exchange we've ever seen on Death Battle. With all their, like, oh, let's fossilize them, shark attack and all that. And their like, random-ass catchphrases. Oh my god. The potential. And, like, oh my god, I'm improvising all of this, but like, this would be one of the rare instances where, you know, some Death Battle animations, you know, sometimes they make mistakes. Here, that would actually make the charm of this matchup, because they're animated like fucking shit. that would actually play in this matchup's favor. Jesus Christ. Oh, the 90s the cheap 90s attitudes. I fucking love this. I'm simping way too much on this matchup. Let's go to next number. Please, quick. It's only up to this point that I'm realizing there's a lot of fucking cartoon or cartoonish fights on this list all of a sudden. Like Street Sharks, Extreme Dinosaurs, like Earthworm Jim, The Tick, Asterix, Popeye. Even X-Cop and Inferno Cop, it's got the potential to be pretty cartoony. But this time, let's talk about the cartoonish fight of all cartoonish fights. Donald versus Daffy Duck. The two greatest waterfowls in animation history, the forever second best, and the butt of a lot of Toon Force jokes. It was one of the greatest DBX of all times, and it's got the potential to be the most painful thing that happened to the fourth wall since the DBX really. But ironically, this is not my number 9 most wanted matchup. I know it's possibly the most wanted matchup of a lot of Death Battle fans, and for good reasons, but I don't know, I've always been a bit pushed away by two problems. First, it's the same personal problem I have with characters like Mordecai and Rigby, Homer Simpson, Peter Griffin, Gumball, etc., etc. While they do get in fights, and they have a baggage that can be akin to other more action-packed characters, I don't see them as specifically warriors. And while it's not a problem in itself, we've had characters like that in the past, but it just takes the joke away when you start taking them as a real serious matchup. I know it's just a me problem, other people don't see it as a great deal, but personal list. But my second more important problem with it, even though I know it's more playing into this matchup's potential, is that there's just so fucking much to analyze. Like, they've been in countless medias and have been in so much shit for centuries that it's almost impossible to not miss, like, a piece of evidence that makes these two's limits so hard to pin down in a 50-minute episode. Like, I think we need something a bit more simple, but also more heroic. Enter Duck Dodgers versus the Duck Avenger, or Paperinic, or Power Duck, or PK, or Super Duck, or Phantom Duck, or Phantom, yes. He's got a lot of fucking names. The two superhero alter egos of both Daffy and Donald. I've grown up watching the Duck Dodgers cartoon and has always been a big fan of the PK comic series that were actually published in France as a kid. So this matchup has always spoken to me in a more personal level than their original counterpart. It also makes this fight maybe not as decisive, but much more fun to analyze and debate, focusing primarily on Duck Dodgers, who is supposed to be a different character played by Daffy Duck, and giving a bit of visibility to this weird era where Donald was a straight up badass in the comics, even though it might come with a great sacrifice.
What is a PK?
By the way, how do you like your cool new voice?
Please don't do what this game did, Death Metal. Aside from that, again, it's got the potential to have just as much slapstick as the original Donald vs. Daffy, but with a more structured theme and justifying the match a bit more when it goes into the more epic and world-shattering. I know the Death Battle crew is very interested in Disney vs. Looney Tunes stuff, so I hope while looking into Donald vs. Daffy, they might just do this one at least first. Even if it's just a setup for the loony insanity that is this rivalry. Shantae versus Shovel Knight. Oh god. Oh shit, here we go. Because everything up until this point was like somehow a bit scripted, but unfortunately I could never find something to put on paper that truly expresses how much I want this matchup. So I guess I'm improvising on this one. While I'm not much of a Shovel Knight expert, in fact I haven't even played any of the Shovel Knight game, I'm a huge fan of Shantae. Shantae is possibly one of my favorite video game characters. Not the number one, but she's very close. I discovered her during the whole Super Smash Bros. Ballots to have her being included in Super Smash Bros., which led me to discover her, and well, since then I've been following that same trend until the end. But with Super Smash Bros. Not taking any new characters anymore and being practically over, you know, the next logical step is for me to wish for her to appear in my other most favorite crossover show. And this matchup is just perfect. They are the Mario and Sonic of indie games. Classic Metroidvania heroes who go after treasures and mysteries, and both collecting jewels and fighting with very untraditional weapons. Shantae uses her hair, her ponytail, as a whip, as a main weapon, and Shovel Knight, well, uses a, goddamn shovel. They also have a ton of magic abilities and gears and arsenals that I would love to see clash together. This could also be the occasion for another 8-beat style death battle, kind of like what they did with Scrooge vs. Shovel Knight. But with the new resources of the time, I would actually love to see how the animation team would go back to those roots. And yeah, that's again, this is one of those, I really like one of the characters and this is the best matchup I can come up with, and they should clash together. I'm sorry, I don't have that much of a script. What can I talk about? Who I think would win? No, I would be biased to Shantae. I would be biased to Shantae. Like, they both have ways to go invulnerable, they both have ways to bypass damages, they both have ways to deal immense amount of damage, and they also, I would say they're comparable in terms of feats too. Like, this sounds like a funny match to debate, and that's the matchup. Two great indie Metroidvania adventurers with a lot of 8-bit origins. If you want to see that, request this matchup. Please, Death Battle, do it. That's my final words. I'm bad at improvising stuff, god damn it. I promise next number is gonna be a bit more scripted than that.
Say the line, Bart!
Let's talk about Po vs. Chen.
Yeah!
if you've been following me for a while, you know that I wasn't too fucking pleased when Iron Fist vs. Poe was announced. In fact, I made a salty rant that I mostly intended to drag on for a joke in my reaction that I ended up just sharing separately. This ended up being the most viewed video on my channel for a while. Even today, it's only second to one of my main videos, the reaction of Dio vs. Alucard of all things. It's also the most disliked video of my channel for obvious reason. I mean, it was an 18-minute salt fest where I just praised Poe vs. Chen without really going into the real details of it. It was poorly edited. There's just nothing redeemable in this video, and it was never really the intention. But now, let's talk about why I prefer this matchup. For real. Obviously, you already know I watched Kung Fu Panda 2 as a kid, and I've rewatched the entire trilogy, and a bit of Legends of Awesomeness for the sake of Iron Fist vs. Poe, and I am a big World of Warcraft simp. So, there's a lot of personal bias in this, but I also think they have a lot more in common than, you know, Mr. Iron Fist over here. Both are panda martial artists, obviously. But they also specialize in animal styles of Kung Fu. You know of Poe's panda style, but monks in World of Warcraft fight using stances. Fierce Tiger, Wise Serpent, and on the case of the Brewmasters like Chen, it's the stance of the Sturdy Hawks, which is all about shrugging attacks and tanking blows as much as possible. They both have a use of Qi to create more supernatural attacks, but most important of all, they both have a similar journey. They both come from a people that was thought to be lost, the Panda race for Kung Fu Panda and the Storm Stout family in Pandaria, and they actually rediscover their origins that they realize is entirely new to them. Both people just so happen to live on lands that were hidden in mists. They also are both jolly gluttons. Poe loves dumplings or eating overall and is basically a cheerful nerd always excited for adventure, while Chen is all about laying back and taking the adventure all in while savoring the finest beer of every place he can visit. It's this clash of really wholesome personality and furious fighting style that gave this matchup the potential to, above the already obvious pairing you can make by looking at them, make for a badass fight but also a respectable one. Kind of like All Might vs. Might Guy or, well, Iron Fist vs. Poe. And while I can't guarantee Chen would win against Poe, I think Chen can surprisingly hold his own. He can take on Infernals, literally meteor people who can survive atmospheric re-entry, and should scale to the Grandmaster. Basically you when you play Monk during Legion, who survived an explosion that leveled the peak of a mountain point blank. Add his signature abilities like his Fire Breath, turning his opponents drunk, and turning into 3 elemental spirit warriors that could make for just an awesome interaction of their powers. With Death Battle seemingly taking more and more interest into getting World of Warcraft characters into the show, I'm less salty about Iron Fist than I was 2 years earlier, but let's hope that if Poe comes back, he'll get his chance against the legendary Brewmaster. And, you know, hopefully I've made a meme of myself enough that they can capitalize on it. Not hoping too much on that, but, you know, that's a factor. Guys, I would like to pay an homage. Because originally this spot belonged to a matchup that occurred last season. Sauron vs. Arthas, aka the Lich King. An episode that gave its debut on the arena to one of the biggest figures from one of my favorite franchises, World of Warcraft. You know, I just wrote that before I reorganized my top, and now I'm realizing that I just talked about a matchup that has WoW in it, after already talking about Warcraft with Alexstrasza. So now that sounded super repetitive. Did I mention I like Warcraft? I've written a ton of things for this match alone, but despite all the passion I would give for the Scourge of Azeroth, I can only blame myself for wanting to watch my hero, or my villain, fall from grace. Literally.
Everybody do the flop!
Will I ever accept his defeat? Am I going to move on and give this entry to another matchup dear to my heart? Satisfied with the fact that Arthas wasn't possibly one of the greatest death battle of his season? Of course not! I want him back, bitches! Plus there's another matchup with him that I want. Darth Vader versus the Lich King. Okay, let me tell you the story. A young man becomes a valiant hero of order, has a cool bearded mentor that taught him the ways of being a magic warrior he considers friend, and a smoking royal girlfriend. But with a fucked up war that started against evil forces, this hero becomes desperate and starts doing everything he can to prevent the death of his loved ones, to the point of being corrupted and joining the very bad side by some creepy old dude, kills his mentor after becoming everything he once swore to fight, and became one of the franchise's most iconic villain. Can you guess who I'm talking about here? Anakin and Arthas are some of the greatest fallen heroes in pop cultures, with almost suspicious similarities. I mean, Death Knights can even force choke you. If that's not asking for trouble, I don't know what is. Not only this would give a chance to everyone's favorite Sith Lord to make an epic comeback, this has the potential to be an incredible fight as well. Comparing the Force to the Lich King's necromancy could be really nice to see, but you can also make a good debate out of this, because while he's not exactly in his planet-level heyday as Anakin, I'm pretty sure Vader still greatly outclasses Arthas in raw stats, enough to potentially break Frostmourne. I mean, Mach 30 is really cute compared to a Jedi who can react to the speed of light, but Lich King also has a lot of hacks that could let him take the upper hand. The Helm of Domination protects him from any mind games, his Cryomancy could mess up Vader's life maintenance equipment, and the Plague of Undeath could especially be fatal on someone like Vader. I know that may sound like I'm throwing this match out of pettiness and give biased arguments for Arthas, but no! In fact, I've been wanting this matchup since longer than Sauron, even before Darth Vader's first episode against Dr. Doom. Ironically, they also both lost their death battles, so having them combined to form one of my longest dream matchup to claim the ultimate redemption would be at the most hype thing ever, no matter who comes out the most impressive. There's a lot of matchups you can make around elemental themed fights. We've had 3 distinct matchups around the element of ice, and I could probably think of more matchups for this one element alone. But an element I'm surprised we haven't seen too much, despite the fact that it's everywhere, is fire. Now seriously, think about it, there's so many fighters that use fire in Death Battle, but the only Death Battle themed around fire was Natsu vs. Ace. Hell, there was more fire versus ice themed matchups than actual fire-themed matchups. And it's surprising because there are so many requested matchups out there that you could probably make a whole season, hell, a whole versus show based on nothing else but just fighters that use fire as a main fighting tool. That's actually super funny. Hey Ben, Chad, whoever, call me. I've got ideas, okay? I've got ideas, you can hit me up whenever you want, and maybe in this show, you can probably find my most wanted fire-themed matchup. Dingodile from Crash Bandicoot again, versus the Pyro from Team Fortress 2 again. Jesus, I can sound very hypocritical sometimes, because like, I talk shit about Spy vs 47, like, oh, it's assassins in disguises and that's it. But then I put this shit all the way in my top 5, and when I look at my notes, it's literally similarities. Flamethrowers, strangely tied to Australia, that's it. Like, literally, and that's it. Maybe it has something to do with my love for Reptile and Dingodile being one of my favorite characters of all time, again. My first Crash Bandicoot game was Crash Bash, and I just loved playing this guy, and Then I later learned about his first appearance with a flamethrower, and I'm like, and like my little 8-year-old ass was like,
Dude! No! He's so cool. And he's like a character. He's a character that he can. Oh my god! That's actually awesome.
and the worst thing is, I don't really have much else to talk about this matchup. I played TF2 when my best friend used to play, but that's just how much I just want Dingodile in Death Battle, and Pyro just sounds like the perfect candidate. No, okay. They don't have just flamethrowers. They also have more tools that they can use in battle. Dingodile has multiple modes in his flamethrower to make all sorts of fire projectiles or even rockets. He can create barriers, whip you away with his tail, and has potentially strong crocodile bites, along with his new weird leaf blower that lets him fly for a bit and can suck up objects. Pyro's flamethrower can also create a pressurized burst that can bounce back projectiles. He can fight with a fireman axe, and he has his well, I was gonna say new jetpack that lets him fly for a bit. But they both also seem incredibly tough. Dingodile being tougher than Crash seems stronger, but Pyro has fought and killed physically superior foes before. It's relatively interesting to see how they could clash together. But yeah, sometimes a matchup, no matter how simple it is, can just resonate intensively. I just crave it. Matchup number 4 is a special one, because I would like to dedicate this one to my best friend. He would prefer to remain anonymous, but let's say we've known each other since high school and we haven't left each other's side ever since. I always helped him through some rough times, and he always helped me during mine. And while he's not really into Death Battle, he sure as hell has an opinion on some matchups that pop around every now and then. Mostly because of me, who keeps forcing him to watch. That helps. And he has a character that I'm sure he would really love to see make an entrance one day. His favorite video game character ever. And there's a matchup that just so happened to feature one of my favorite video game characters. So this is our little friendly rivalry that I'm trying to establish with him. Sly Cooper versus Rouge the Bat. Two world-renowned suave anthropomorphic mammal thieves. Masters at using all sorts of techniques and gadgets along with their irresistible charm and persuasion to get out of trouble as easily as getting into them for the greater good. So yeah, Sly Cooper is my best friend's favorite game series, and Rouge is potentially one of my favorite Sonic characters. Not the favorite, I can think of a couple that I prefer over her, like Amy, Vector, or Metal Sonic, but she's definitely a top 5 or 3. And no, it has nothing to do with what you're thinking of, okay? Just because I'm a furry that likes Rouge the Bat does not mean I enjoy her just because of the fat boobs. Well, I do enjoy the boobs, but not because I'm a furry. Moving on. This is a matchup that not only sounds incredibly fun with cool interactions, but it's actually a very fun one to research and debate as well, because both are actually a lot tougher than you can think. Sly is able to lift around a massive steel ball and chain and throw it hard enough to destroy a wall, and Rouge is able to fly around while carrying Omega, who weighs 2 fucking tons, Jesus Christ. She's heavily established to be as strong with kicks as Base Knuckles is with punches, and while she's not moving at light speed and outracing entire black holes anytime soon, she can keep up with Shadow's casual running speed. Half of that would already give her a significant physical advantage in raw stats. But that shouldn't really stop Sly, who's kinda used to fighting physically superior opponents. The real fun starts when we start addressing their gadgets and abilities, and how they counter each other. because they both have a surprisingly complex array of weapons, traps, and gizmos for different axes. And in that field, there might be a lot of you who would think this ball would go on Sly's team, right? Well, what if I played devil's advocate for a bit? Because I think Rouge just has what she needs to cancel some of Sly's game-changing abilities. Confusion and disorientation? Oh hey, she can do that too! Stealth and invisibility? Her superhuman hearing and treasure scope would let her detect any sneak attack. Freezing people in time? Well, she has her Charm Ray, which can also instantly freeze opponents for 10 seconds wherever they are. She has all the specific tools she needs to put her and Sly on equal footing, making a face-to-face confrontation inevitable where she could apply that superior strength and speed. But I know there are a lot more variables, and I'm sure you'll be happy to fill your own blanks into this discussion. I just don't want to drag too long on who wins in detail, because that's not entirely the point of why I want this matchup. Not only we need to have the last PlayStation move hero on Death Battle, yeah I went there, not only this would give visibility to a very underrated Sonic character, but it's a matchup that would make both me and my closest friend happy. And that's all that matters. Kind of anticlimactic for a conclusion, but yeah, that's what I've got. Okay, we finally reached the podium. My Goku versus Superman, my Galactus versus Unicron, my Blake versus Mikasa. These three matchups are my most wanted matchups of all time, with pretty much no distinctions aside from potentially my current mood. Number 3 could be number 1 one day, number 2 could become number 3 another, and then number 1 can also be number 3 on yet another day. So before I get to this sacred trinity of dream matchups, here are some honorable mentions.
Legend in my own right, I don't buy own rights. Blood, sweat, and tears, the trinity of them long nights. Leave a legacy, epitome of my whole life. Legends never die, legends never die. Yeah. Never compromise, yeah. I'ma take the prize. Legends never die, legends never die. Never compromise, forever immortalized. Legends never die, legends never die. Yeah. Never compromise, yeah. I'ma take the prize. Legends never die, legends never die. Never compromise, forever immortalized. If you a legend, time to rise up. It's time to rise up.
Robot Boy versus Jenny Wakeman from My Life as a Teenage Robot. Cartoon Network versus Nickelodeon. Robots and cartoon shenanigans. Two things very dangerous to combine if you don't want to end up with one of the most powerful machines you've ever seen. Two white and blue robots designed to be the most powerful in their craft, but desiring one thing: to walk amongst humans as normal kids. One has the mentality of a child, and the other has the mentality of a teenager. But they can't really fight off that pesky heroic desire to help others with the help of their insane arsenal. Laser guns, rockets, buzzsaws, flamethrowers, ice throwers, flails, extendable arms and legs, bombs, inhuman strength and speed, all the robot shenanigan you can think of. They're also both followed by a very similar cast of 4 allies. You have the creator and parental figure, Professor Moshimo and Nora Wakeman respectively, the most supportive friend of the bunch, Tommy and Brad, the gross and immature one who gets in trouble, Gus and Tuck, and finally, the love interests, Lola and Sheldon, though the main interest of their love is different. I'm sure a lot of you were expecting this one to be the number one of all number ones, because yeah, I definitely spent a lot of time analyzing this fight on my DeviantArt, and this was the one I was the most passionate about for way back in the day. But like I said, number 3 can still be number 1, and boy do I need it! Robot Boy was a cartoon I used to watch as a kid. In fact, it's taken a good part of my childhood, and as I was discovering Death Battle, I felt nostalgic, and was wondering if people came up with matchup ideas for the little guy. That's where I was introduced to My Life as a Teenage Robot, also known as Muhatter. Okay, no, that sounds better on paper. And I fell in love with it. It's probably one of my favorite shows nowadays. So this just rocketed my interest for this fight to intense level, because, like, how can I not like this matchup? It's two obscure, similar cartoon shows about blue robot kids with a connection to my childhood and teenagehood. Plus, Jenny seems to get a little rebirth in relevancy recently, thanks to an extremely active community and her inclusions in recent crossovers, like Nick All-Star Brawl, Kart Racer Slime Speedway, and even Smite, of all things. It would definitely bring an audience while providing a cool matchup for Jenny. As to who would win, well, it's pretty clear-cut debate-wise. Lots of more popular versus YouTuber have gone in more details, and it's pretty much universally agreeable that Jenny would win. I even made my own analysis on DeviantArt a long time ago, and ended up coming with the same conclusion on my own. Though it's not a complete stop, Robot Boy does have a few ability XJ9 doesn't, like his growth capacitor that can make him grow bigger than the moon, or miniaturizing to the size of a blood cell and mess up Jenny from the inside. But again, what can I say more about this? These two are just begging to interact with each other, and I think the time is growing ever more right to have it become a reality, and this would mean the world to me. So make it happen, people! Brandon, hit it!
For the Horde!
Thrall versus Gaskul Mag Uruk Fraka. World of Warcraft versus Warhammer 40,000. Two of my favorite franchises ever going at each other. The War Chief of the New Horde versus the War Boss of the War. Orc versus Orc. Horde versus War. Heroic fantasy versus grim dark sci-fi. Magic versus unrelenting brute strength. The wisdom of a pacifist versus warmongering ferocity. The greatest commanders of my favorite factions in their universe. Well, close second, because like I still prefer like Taurens and Space Marines and Grey Knights. Anyway, these two green-skinned warlords have risen from nothing to lead their people into a new glorious age in a world of constant war. Thrall was taken and raised as a slave by humans to fight in gladiatorial arenas, and broke the chains of his oppressors by learning the old shamanistic ways of his people, and rose up to lead the Horde into new lands for a new beginning. And Gaskul was sold as a lab rat for scrap after having half his skull blown off by a bullet, but awoke after receiving visions of his brutally cunning and cunningly brutal gods, telling him to rise up to lead the boys into new lands for a new great war. And while they have a lot of spiritual connections, they also have a lot of contrast that makes this fight interesting. First, we have Thrall's communion with the elements: water, earth, fire, air. Yeah, I know it all changed until the Fire Nation attacked. Haha, very funny, guys. Although, the fire elementals took control of the Dark Iron, who are basically fire dwarves, and they invaded the Eastern Kingdoms for a long time, led by Ragnaros, the Fire Lord. Holy shit, the Fire Nation did attack! Well, you're not gonna make a Captain Planet joke, because it can control earth, fire, wind, water, and spirits. It has nothing to do with hearts, okay? It's more like, how do I describe it? Let me check the wiki. Spirit energy, also called spirit of life, is the inner energy inside all living beings. It is the spark of their hearts that connects the mortal to the elements. God damn it! Forget Aang versus Captain Planet! He is Aang versus Captain Planet! Anyway, and Gaskul, while he doesn't have much, he just has his big old power claw that can flip off tanks, a couple stick bombs, and his quadruple-barreled Gatling gun. He's also inhumanly resilient. In his early days, he survived ramming his Space Hulk into a planet full of humans. What is a Space Hulk, you may ask? Imagine Space Hulk as an amalgamation of hundreds of thousands of abandoned or lost ships that have like fused into a ghost ship the size of an asteroid or a small moon. An asteroid or a small moon. and he survived crash landing that shit. 40k orcs can survive having huge parts of their body ripped off or even being decapitated for an incredible amount of time. Thrall would need nothing less than his absolute best to take on Ghazghkull, but it would be the same for Gaz, because at his best, Thrall's powers were considered worthy of successing the place of Deathwing. You know, also that guy who also carved the entire world. And with all his elemental hexes like healing spells, elemental summons, tornadoes, earthquakes, and other fire or lightning attacks, there's a good argument that can be made for Thrall overwhelming Ghazghkull. This is a matchup that can take such earth-breaking proportions and be such a close duel that brings each of these two at their absolute best. And I could still debate over it for another hour, but I'll probably keep that for another video. I never promised that Torek never lives up to. Woohoo! Anyway, finally, both the Horde and Waaagh have a similar energy that would represent a more underrated aspect of both universes: the pure community hype and comic relief. 40k Orcs fan are, how do I say this? Think of Rick and Morty fans, but they're actually funny. I know, Outerversal level feat. And you can always count on a Warcraft fan to be shouting like, Loktar Ogar and for the Horde at the top of their lungs. Because remember, this is the same faction that got us a metal band in universe. Speaking of music, I really need to talk about the biggest potential of this matchup in my opinion. The music it can have. You're probably all familiar with Warhammer of Doom, the track I commissioned to Brendan Yates. In fact, you're probably listening to it right now. However, you know how Wings of Iron was a direct homage to You Got the Touch from the Transformers movie? Well, please imagine a track that was a direct homage to Power of the Horde, or any of the Elite Torrent Shifting song.
I am the son of the wind and rain. Thunder beckons and I heed the call. And if I die upon this day, in battle I will fall. Road, do it in the darkness. Road, do it where the sun don't shine. Road, with a little drop of poison. Road, do it from behind. From the coast of West Fall to Black Melody. Silent I hunt you, silent I will creep.
Bonus points if you can actually feat with the OJ singer himself, Samwise Didier. I don't know, the man looks jolly and looks like he would be down for it. But you wanna know a good one? You wanna know how desperate I am for this fight? Despite all of this, despite all the praise I can give and all the crazy expositions, this matchup and all other matchups that include Warhammer, they're never going to happen. Because Games Workshop had the great idea to enforce a no-tolerance policy against all Warhammer 40k fan animations. Not art, not music, not fan fiction, but fan animations. Because they wanted to promote their shitty streaming service Warhammer Plus. So now, pretty much all Warhammer animations are either cancelled or locked under a shit paywall, or worst, hired to animate for the Hammer and Bolter series. Now that's peak 40k, because this fate is worse than death. Another connection you can make is that both Blizzard and Games Workshop used to be better than this. But despite this tragedy, I stay hopeful and wish that one day we can see these two meet in a glorious animated 3D fight. For the Horde and for the Waaagh! There's a certain controversy regarding what people like about Death Battle matchups. And by controversy, I mean I saw 2 or 3 guys at best bring this argument, and I found it interesting enough to talk about it. And it's the Death Battle community's obsession with symmetry. Finding characters with as much similarities as possible to the expense of being interesting, almost resembling mirror matches. Take Goku vs. Superman, for example. They have few similarities in their stories and their cultural impact, but they have a lot of differences in abilities and personalities that makes them interesting to clash together. Same thing with Link vs. Cloud, Bowser vs. Ganondorf, or even Thor vs. Vegeta. But then you take matchups like Aquaman vs. Namor, or Hulk vs. Doomsday, Matchups between characters that seem to be the exact rip-off of each other in way more aspects. Even when in some instances they are, but you know, it comes to the point that some people may not find them as entertaining to watch. And I am a big perpetrator of this kind of trope myself. I mean, hell, just think of all the matchups I keep saying I love because these characters are so similar or they're the same, and the time I spent throwing those similarities at you, how offended I was by Po fighting Iron Fist or Popeye fighting Saitama because Po could have fought another panda doing kung fu or another guy who gets stronger by eating his veggies instead of their more popular while being more different actual opponent. Think of all the people online infuriated by the reveal of an official matchup because they believe it would be best for one of those to fight a more similar opponent despite how obscure they are. It's unreasonable to think this didn't happen for any of us. However, despite all of that, I kind of disagree with this. To me, that's exactly because some characters out there are so similar that I love to compare them, to play favorites, to figure out who's the best at filling this specific role, and seeing the smallest differences between the two shine twice as bright. Plus, I mean, come on, Yoshimitsu from Soul Calibur versus Yoshimitsu from Tekken. You can't possibly tell me it's not the opportunity of the century for a good laugh. And my number one, or at least on my big three, while it's a good example of similarities over impacts, it's just too important for me to be anything less than my most wanted matchup of all time. Brendan, hit it one last time. Lizardman vs. Reptile. Soul Calibur vs. Mortal Kombat. At first it might just sound like, oh, reptilian villains from iconic fighting game series. Sure. But they both didn't start this way. Lizardman was once a human Spartan warrior named Aeon Kalkos, chosen by the god Hephaestus to destroy the evil sword Soul Edge. However, in his heroic journey, he immediately got lost in the desert, got cursed with a murderous frenzy by Soul Edge, and kidnapped by a cult who was just passing by, brainwashing him and turning him into the lizard monster he is today. And Reptile... Are you familiar with Aristotle saying man is a social animal? Well, with him, it's more literally. Reptile, or Sizoth, is the last surviving member of his race, the Zatirans. And they have this thing where if one is separated from their brethren for too long, they slowly start to revert their own evolution. Literally going back to monkey. But the monkeys here, they're just acid-spitting lizard. That's why in the original timeline, Reptile has gone from this, to this, to this, and to inevitably, this. Yeah, Reptile is not liking this one bit, and neither does Aeon. In fact, despite these carnal intentions consuming their thoughts, they want their past back. Aeon is doing everything he can to find a way to turn back into a human, and Reptile wants to restore his lost race. But in their desperation, they keep being manipulated by the ones responsible for their conditions and fall deeper into madness. Aeon forsaking his prior god to later fall under the influence of the god of war Ares, whose cult turned him into a lizard in the first place, who turned him from a simple lizard man to a beast who could gain the traits of anyone he devours, and Reptiles serves no one else but Shao Kahn, not knowing it was actually him who ravaged the Zateran race in the first place. One time, he met face to face with a Zateran female warrior, Chameleon, who had the same exact interest. And Reptile was so far removed from reality that out of paranoia, he refused her pleadings to join her to, restore the fallen race. They just really can't catch a break, and it's actually accurate in real life. They are very minor characters in their respective story and tend to get very poor representations, Lizardman being very much portrayed as a joke character, and Reptile is often the one who dies first in a lot of modern interpretation for no reason.
Alright, so first things first as always, Reptile dies immediately. Why do you do this to me? What?
In fact, despite being legitimate threats, they both carry possibly one of the worst win-loss record I've ever seen in a video game. I think the best thing Aeon has done that was not part of his background or anything was when he kidnapped a child that's constantly off-screen and gets beaten by Rock. But at least he broke his trusty axe first. And Reptile, he lost to Johnny Cage. And I need to emphasize this, because we joke around about how Johnny Cage being an actor. No. Johnny's awesome. But Reptile managed to lose to Johnny Cage in his first battle. He's a 1,000-year-old lizard monster who gets his ass beat by a guy who didn't even know the supernatural existed. Which is super sad because these are two very tragic characters. Lizardman is unironically my favorite fighting game character ever. He was the first character I ever, really bad for. Like, come on, the guy just wants to go home. He just wants to go to his family and just live a happy life again, but he can't. And in fact, I actually became a fan of Mortal Kombat because Reptile reminded me a lot of Aeon in design as well as in story. So these two tragic green Muppets are extremely dear to my heart, and seeing them go at each other's throats is the greatest service that can ever be given to these characters. Oh, you love Reptile versus Reptar, 'cause dinosaur, right? Reptar is a dinosaur. Reptile is a reptile. How do you fuck that up? So there you have it. Those were my most wanted Death Battle matchups ever. Thank you so much for watching this video. This was a little dream project of mine for a long time that I never got to do or to find the time to really work on it, but you all gave me the motivation to do it. If you like this fancy little wish list, make sure to hit that little like button. If you have any questions or any thoughts, leave them in the comments and I'd be happy to read them. I also make reactions and I stream myself drawing any upcoming death battle, so if you're interested, why not subscribe and hit that bell? That way you'll be notified when I start reacting to Season 10, and who knows? Maybe some other stuff might be coming soon. I don't know, maybe. Anyway, that was Torok at your service, and I'll see you next time.